We got a humdinger of a Woj bomb.
Uh-oh.
Hawks are trading Gallo and multiple first-round picks to the Spurs for Dejounte Murray. That's
Okay.
a really interesting backcourt in Atlanta now.
That's a big time trade by the Atlanta
Okay,
Hawks.
so this one has been building for a couple of days now. The Spurs have been mulling whether or not to trade Dejounte Murray for a couple of months. Their toes were in the water a little bit at the trade deadline, and it intensified here, and they decided to do it. You're going to ask, why would they trade a guy in his, what is he, Bontemps, 25, 26?
25 or 26.
Going into his prime.
Why would they trade a guy under contract for 2 more years at good salary, going into his prime? Why would they trade him away, especially for a guy in Danilo Gallinari who very likely is going to be released? Gallinari has a partially guaranteed contract. Whatever needs to be guaranteed to execute this trade will be guaranteed. Likely he will be released. I'll talk in a minute about where we think he might end up. So why would you do this? And let me try to explain the thought process as far as I know based on my reporting recently. Dejounte Murray is eligible for a contract extension. He and his agent Rich Paul made it known that he was not going to extend his contract with the Spurs this summer. And that wasn't really necessarily about the Spurs. His contract is about $16 million on average. When you extend your contract, you're limited into how much of a raise you can get. And it would have been probably below his market value as a 25-year-old all-star. But he pretty much told them, he's like, I'm probably not going to extend next summer either. So the Spurs were looking at a situation here where they were probably not going to be able to retain Dejounte Murray until he hit unrestricted free agency in 2 years. Now, he may have played great. He might get 2 more all-star appearances in those 2 years, but the Spurs realized that his value would probably decline. They could get less for him in a year than they can now. And they're not going anywhere these next 2 years. They're not headed for contention. So the concept here is to get ammunition to help rebuild. And we'll see how many draft picks this comes down. I don't know if
It's was just reported as 3 first-rounders and a pick swap.
Okay. Yep. So it's a pretty gigantic haul.
Not quite the full Drew Holiday package, but pretty close.
Pretty close.
Right. So this is what now this is a huge move for Trae Young. Trae Young gets a guy who can defend next to him with length,
an
who
elite
can protect
defender.
him on the perimeter. It's a big move for the Hawks, who might not be done dealing. They've been talking to teams about John Collins. This is a big move for the Hawks. Maybe, Bontemps, about the Hawks. Maybe you can see it from their perspective.
This is a big move on a lot of fronts. Let's start with the fact that Dejounte Murray is rep by Rich Paul and Trae Young is rep by Omar Wilkes. Both of them are rep by Clutch. And I think when you're talking about trading for a guy with 2 years left on his deal, I think it's pretty noteworthy that 2 of the teams involved here were the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have Anthony Edwards on their team, rep by Omar Wilkes, and Trae Young with the Hawks, rep by Omar Wilkes. You would think those teams would have a pretty decent indication of whether Dejounte Murray would want to be there long-term if they're going to give up these kind of picks. Certainly, you would think that the Hawks, given this kind of pick package, are going to be expecting him to be playing next to Trae Young for a long time. Now, you mentioned his ability to be a defensive player next to Trae Young. Obviously, that's going to be a critical thing. The other thing I think that's interesting about this is Dejounte Murray is a guy who's used to having the ball in his hands. He's not a great shooter. I think the interesting thing here is that this might unlock a little bit of Trae playing off the ball more. You can have Dejounte attacking, Trae coming off of screens, doing a little bit more Steph Curry type stuff. I think that could be interesting. And I think more than anything, to me, this is a real all in. We talked about at the beginning of this pod, we talked about, the Knicks kind of going all in, not obviously with this kind of price to get a guy like Jalen Brunson. The Atlanta Hawks, 18 months, or I guess it was a year ago, man, it's been a long couple of years, but a year ago, the Atlanta Hawks were in the Eastern Conference Finals and were 2 games away from the NBA Finals. This past year, they were in the play-in tournament. And there was a lot of pressure there to take a step forward and to get better. And this price that they paid, I love Dejounte Murray. He's a great player. This is a huge price to pay for him. And to me, it's a sign that the Hawks are saying, all right, we got to get back to where we were last year. And that's going to be hard in the East, but we talked about where the Knicks are at. The Hawks, they are way ahead of the Knicks right now. And I'm not sure where they rank in the East, but this was a big time, all in, push the chips in move by Atlanta. And I'm really curious to see how it shakes out on the court.
Well, and if you're going to have Trae Young, you need to surround him with very good defensive players. You know, they've got Capella now, they've got Hunter. Now they add Dejounte Murray to that mix. And I think Trae can really benefit from not having to carry the load. First of all, their offense would completely crumble when he came off the floor. That should
Agreed.
no longer be the case. And then I think he will benefit from not having the responsibility of creating every single shot, whether it's for him or for somebody else. Like you said, he can play off the ball. I mean, his catch and shoot numbers are absolutely phenomenal. It should be less wear and tear, less physical demand on him. And then, from the Spurs perspective, obviously, it signals going into rebuild. Like you said, Wendy, it is. It is.
Well, let me
ammo
ask
for
you
that.
this. So what you wonder is, the Spurs don't have much. Like, I don't know if they would trade Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson's still on his rookie salary. I think if anything, they're trying to figure out a way to extend him. I would think they don't have.
They're gonna play their young players. They're gonna try to win 20 games, and they're gonna try to win the lottery again. That's what they're doing.
Spurs don't tank often, but when they do, there's a generational 7-footer at the top of the draft.
And by the way,
right.
there's Scoot Henderson with the second pick, like another big time player. Like this, if you're gonna tank, this is a year to do it. Like there's some big time players available.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.